New York has just become the 6th state in the country to legalize human composting. What is human composting? It's exactly what it sounds like. Human composting is when you die, they put you in a box, they put some plants and straw and wood around you, and they leave you in that box for 30 days until you turn to soil, and then they pour you on the ground. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has added natural organic reduction to cremation and entombment as an acceptable burial method. The new law defines the practice as the, quote, contained, accelerated conversion of human remains to soil in a structure, room, or other space in which decomposition can occur. Now, a question I ask you is this wrong? I think most of us think this is wrong. I imagine that the majority of people listening to this show right now would say, yeah, there's something kind of wrong about this. Some people might say, no, there isn't anything wrong. But most people have a gut feeling, at least, that there's something wrong about this. And then the second question, why is it wrong? That's the harder question. Most people, especially the kind of people who accept many of our culture's premises, that we should just follow our unfettered reason, that people should have the right to do whatever they want to do. Consenting adults should have the right to do whatever they want to do. We own our own bodies. We're individuals. It is important to maximize our individual autonomy. People who believe these premises, which are not just the premises of the crazy left, they're the premises of pretty much everybody after the Enlightenment in liberal modernity, even many people who call themselves conservative. If you follow those premises and that kind of logical progression, it's very difficult to explain why it's wrong to turn grandma into a plot of dirt, okay, and then grow your tomatoes out of, dear Aunt Sally. But it is wrong, nevertheless. And it's wrong because all those premises that we get out of liberal modernity are wrong too. It's wrong because human beings have dignity, okay? We are not the same thing as all the other animals. We're not the same thing as plants. We're not the same thing as bugs. We're different. We're human beings. We are made in the image and likeness of God. And that is why we have a responsibility to show some respect for dead bodies. That is why there are laws throughout the civilized world against the desecration of bodies. What does that mean, to desecrate? It's recognizing that there is an aspect of the body as being part of your human self that is sacred, where you shouldn't desecrate that body. But what you'll hear from the libs and the squishes is they'll say, well, you're entitled to all your religious mumbo jumbo, whatever, but you can't force that on us. We're a secular society. Well, I guess we are. If we're now at the point where the way that we treat dear old grandma who loved us all our lives is the moment she dies to throw her into the garden so the pigs can eat her and tomatoes can grow out of her, then I guess we are a secular society. But we shouldn't be. We didn't start out as a secular society. It's not what the founding fathers set up. It's not what the framers set up. It's not what we were until 5 minutes ago. But now we may have become that. There's this really, really good book that is coming out soon by a writer named Matthew Petrusik, who it's being published by Word on Fire, and it's a book about evangelization and ideology. And I just did a blurb for it, so I got an advanced copy of this book. But it's really great. I encourage you to pre-order it and get the book, because it does a great job of explaining how political issues, the political debates that we have, are just one tiny little fraction of the broader debates that the conclusions of which we are simply assuming. I'll bring this down to earth a little bit. When we're debating a policy like whether or not to throw grandma in the garden, that political debate is assuming a lot of conclusions about applied morality. And that's kind of the next circle out. Applied morality, which is assuming a lot of conclusions about morality generally, which is assuming a lot of conclusions about epistemology, about how we can know epistemology is how we know anything at all. It's the study of knowledge. How do we know things? How do we know that certain things are true and certain things are false, and certain things are good and certain things are bad? Then you go out a circle further. Well, that assumes a lot of things about anthropology. We talk about anthropology a lot when it comes to the transgender debate. What does it mean to be a human being? What is human nature? Can a boy become a girl? Can a girl become a boy? These are going to be just assumed in a lot of our political debates. When you move out from anthropology, you get to ontology. The question of being, what it means to be, what it means to exist. And when you have those questions are assuming conclusions from theology. What is the fundamental reality? What is reality within which all of those other questions would exist? We, unfortunately, just go into these debates blindly in many ways. And the worst part is, everyone goes blind. We're not going to have extremely high-level scholarly debates over every single question that comes before the Congress. Problem is, though we are assuming all sorts of conclusions about all those really high-level questions, we used to assume them with the prejudice of tradition, with the prejudice of civilization, with the prejudice of Christianity. These days, we are assuming those premises with the prejudices of liberalism, of leftism, of atheism. And when you just take there is no God, that's one premise we're assuming, or if there is a God, we can't really know anything about him. Being is merely physical. Human beings are just a bag of chemicals. The only way we know anything is through the microscope and the scientific method. Morality is just whatever the people want at any given time, or whatever makes me feel good. If it feels good, do it. And so if grandma wants to get thrown into the garden, it's fine. Or if we want to throw in the garden, that's fine too. Well, yeah, I see how you could arrive at that stupid conclusion, but you've arrived at it by assuming all sorts of conclusions about higher level thinking that are simply not true, okay? And the prejudice has become rote for us because the libs conquered the culture, and it's going to take a lot to dig ourselves out of that. But I think the first thing we have to do is dig grandma out of the garden, okay, and dig her out of the tomato plant. We know that is wrong. We have a wisdom of repugnance, to borrow a word from Leon Kass. We know we shouldn't do that. There is nothing wrong or irrational or stupid or uneducated about using our law to say, no, you don't get to do that. No, you should be buried. I'm actually against cremation as well. I know a lot of people opt for it. I think cremation makes a mockery of a notion that animated our culture for a very long time, which is the resurrection of the body. This is a central concept of Christianity. And it matters even beyond what will happen to us in the hereafter or at the second coming or the final judgment, because it gets down to the question of what is the relationship between the soul and the body? What am I really? If the body doesn't mean anything, then transgenderism is A-okay, right? Because my true self is just my soul. My body is incidental to that. If I want to chop it up, even if a little kid wants to chop it up, no big deal. But I don't think that's true. I think the body does matter. So much so that I'm reminded of the words of Tertullian, who said that the salvation is the very hinge, or rather the flesh is the very hinge of salvation, okay? That our bodies, and what we do with our bodies, and what we do in time and space, really do matter. So we should not just become mulch. Okay, you are more than mulch.